Thank you so much. So today I'm really excited to be with you. It's wonderful to see all the West Seattle businesses and new members today. And I guarantee you that today you will learn something that you didn't know. Hopefully it will be a little bit educational and depending upon the individual, maybe entertaining as well. So without further ado, I'm going to tell you that my family has been in West Seattle for nearly 100 years, 99 years to be exact. And my wife and I both went to Lafayette Elementary, Madison, what's called middle school now, what used to be called junior high school then, and West Seattle High School. So we've been around a while, and the family's been around a while, and we've had businesses in West Seattle. Today, I want to provide some practical insights into business growth. I used to embrace a saying called grow or die, you know, and I'm at that place where I wish I would have known what I do today back then, because there would have been a couple of do-overs. Grow or die is not for every business, and not every business is really meant to grow forever. Some, like many professional businesses, are meant to grow to their capacity and kind of carry on. My dad was a dentist. He started out with a partner and then another, and so there are 3 dentists at Alaska Street Dental Clinic, which essentially was across from the VFW hall there, the one with the little cannon in West Seattle. But also my grandfather started a company called West Seattle Radiator Service. So I want to tell you and start with a little story, and it's my story, and I'm going to refer back to that to make points with regard to my presentation. And that story talks about the growth of a radiator business to a global company called Red Dot Corporation. West Seattle Radiator, where my grandfather started this business, was started when, after the World War II, when he found that there were a lot of cars that needed to be repaired, and he started this radiator business. And he owned that business during the 1950s, and he worked like crazy, like a lot of businesses in West Seattle. And it was one of those businesses that really had capacity limits. And he wanted to serve everyone, and so he worked damn hard to do that. And like many businesses today, are working lots of hours to keep their businesses turning and alive and well. He tried to probably serve too many people, and at one point in time actually was sent to the hospital because of a breakdown due to working too many hours and trying to serve those customers. Along the way, he had some commercial customers, ones that went up the Alaska-Canada highway delivering mail. And what he provided when those drivers came in and needed the radiator fixed was a small heater. They told him how cold it was in Fairbanks, Alaska. So he made a little radiator, put it below the seat of this mail truck, and when the driver came back after that mail run, he loved it, told all the other drivers, and it became something that my grandfather did on the side. Well, he reflected on the radiator business, and you know, the business wasn't that fun for him. His customers were mad because their car was shut down and were mad because they couldn't use it for about a week until he got it fixed. And of course, when he handed them the invoice or the bill, they weren't happy there at all. So it wasn't a happy business. But you know, when he provided that underseat heater to that truck company and those drivers, they loved it. And he loved being a hero for them. And he developed a relationship with the Kenworth Truck Manufacturing Company down on East Marginal Way near Boeing Field, and started providing heaters on weekends and on other hours. And he decided he needed to go into the heater business. And he sold the West Seattle Radiator to his foreman, Buddy Burns, and Buddy ran that business for 50 years and was successful in having a small business in West Seattle that provided for his family and for himself, and had a nice little business there. But the Red Dot Corporation, that's Started at a small location. That's me and my brother working at the first location. Started serving truck companies on the West Coast, and they were providing these underseat heaters or auxiliary heaters. And then we're invited to provide the heater that went into the dash. And that business started to grow with more and more businesses, and they opened up another facility. This one is on 7,000 Highland Park Drive. We grew to about 60 to 75 employees at that point in time. I was in college at the time that this was going on. And then finally, in 1979, moved to South Center, or Andover Park East. In the 1990s, in 1990, I became president of Red Dot Corporation. And at that time, truck companies all over the nation were being bought by European car manufacturers and truck manufacturers. Mercedes-Benz, actually, a Daimler, bought Freightliner in Portland, who was a big customer of ours. They bought Mack trucks. Volvo and Renault bought Mack trucks. So these automotive manufacturers were buying up truck businesses, and that introduced some new competition to our business, and ones that we had to deal with. My first week as president of the company in 1990, we had a presentation at Freightliner Corporation in Portland, Oregon. Afterwards, the vice president of purchasing took me into his office and sat me down and he said, Randy, you guys have been terrific suppliers to Freightliner Corporation, and we really appreciate all that you've done, and the presentation you gave today was great. But one of your competitors, CEO, sits on Daimler's board, and they're our new owners. So I just want to let you know that the playing field is not level. Wow. That was a huge wake-up call to us. And so we started looking at where our customers really appreciated the things that we do. And that turned out to be off-road businesses. So we pivoted our company to providing heating and air conditioning systems for those trucks and off-road equipment to Caterpillar, John Deere, and finally the U.S. military. So we transitioned our business, and not that we ever lost any truck companies business, we did, but it was diminished to a place of a specialty supplier. But with the off-road business, we were able to actually build our business with businesses and worldwide companies that really appreciated what we did. And so that led to a company in 2012 that had 5 locations around the world. We did about $130 million in business, and really enjoyed working with global accounts and suppliers. But during that time frame, we had to pivot our business several different times in order to grow as a business and stay in business. So that's really not that unusual for growth companies. Again, West Seattle Radiator survived for 50 years and provided a great place to work for a small group of people. For Buddy Burns, it provided obviously income for him for a lifetime, and hopefully some wealth as well. What I've observed, and what is not unusual, is that businesses go through cycles. And I want to provide a couple of graphics for you to consider. There are 32 million businesses in the United States. Most of them, 96% of them, are under $1 million. Now, the rule of thumb is essentially at $1 million, employees usually are $100,000. You add a new employee when you do $100,000 more in business. So as a rule of thumb, when you get to $1 million, you should probably have anywhere between 8 to 14 employees, depending upon the business. And this usually winds up to be one of those places where businesses have to make a transition, because having a leader try to keep up with more than 10 employees and give them daily direction on what to do becomes a problem. All of a sudden, scale comes into the place, and they have to think about how to reorganize their business and change the leadership structure and deal with a little bit larger company and growing. If they don't, and they try to do business as usual, they face this next down cycle, and I call it the valley of death. If you don't evolve and change your business, if you're a growth business, the odds aren't on your side. In fact, nearly 50% of all small startups fail within the first 5 years. Or I should actually say the 50% of the small business startups succeed after 5 years. This business cycle, though, varies depending upon the type of industry that you're in. So I want to focus on what that typical life cycle is. Now, again, this is a general theoretical model, but it holds true more or less for organizations. First of all, you have the startup phase where you're trying to find your product, your service, your market, and so forth, and the business finally lands on one, that entrepreneurial stage, and they have a defined strategy of going to market, and they are growing profitably. They experience some stability and maturity, and when they get to the top of this cycle, there are changes in the market that they know are happening, and they need to take that into account and change their product, their service, how it's delivered, their market or geography in order to continue to grow. If they don't pivot, what inevitably ensues is there may be more competition, or their product or service doesn't quite fit the market, and the businesses starts to flatline. This causes obviously anxiety, and where do we take the business, so forth and so on. And without real change, positive change that's going to pivot to those new changes in the marketplace, they're going to go over the edge. So this inflection point right here requires some renewal of the strategy for the business. Otherwise, just doing the same old thing that you've always done, and in a market that no longer appreciates the value of the service or the product you supply, is not going to lead to a good outcome. Now, theoretically, this is nice and clean, but it doesn't usually work out that way. Most of the time, it's a little bit messy. There's lots of noise in a business as it moves along this growth curve, because there's ups and downs and new developments and so forth. But there's this point in time where usually the leadership and the owner know it's time to change that pivot. So this business, it requires a new strategy and a new focus in order to continue to grow as an organization. And so I want to talk a little bit about strategy. Now, if you went to Amazon and looked for books on strategy, which I did, there are over 40,000 books. If you read one book a day on strategy, it would take you 109 years to read all of the books. So there's lots of ideas on strategy. Many of them are great information, and most of them are great information that can be applied to your business, but most of them are maybe overcomplicated. And that's where I find today's discussion needs to go, as to how do we simplify this and make it practical for organizations. So I want to talk just a little, for a few minutes about strategists. Jack Welch and GE were very successful in their time. His idea for strategy is the evolution of a central idea through continually and changing circumstances. Now, his single idea was the fact is that if we cannot be number one or number two on a marketplace, we don't want to be involved. So that served Jack Welch and GE very well for a time, and they became essentially a conglomerate. It didn't serve a lot of the employees really well, because they closed a lot of businesses. and got rid of a lot of businesses to create cash to buy others that were going to be number one and number two in the marketplace. So it was that central idea. If we look at Southwest Airlines, they had a saying in their business. The central idea was wheels up, because every time an airplane took off, they were making money. So they focused their organization on getting those planes into the air as quickly as possible with customers. And so that led to a lot of the things that they implemented, like this, no seat assignment. It's the festival seating to get people on the airplane a lot quicker. They only used one type of airplane, so all of our mechanics knew how to maintain the 737, and that's the only airplane that they bought, because that was their strategy: wheels up. Another very well-known strategist is Michael Porter, who is a Harvard professor, and he's really good. His books are really good, and they concentrate on the fact that you need to have something different than your competitors. There needs to be something different, because if you don't differentiate your business from your competitors, then they can play you off against one another until you race to the bottom, which is usually on price, and pinch your margins. So his focus of his theories have to do with differentiating activities. Now, Nordstrom, it has differentiators, but geez, they're a clothing and retail shoe company. What are their differentiators? Well, they have made a business out of terrific customer service. Another one is Les Schwab. Les Schwab has differentiated. They're a tire company, for crying out loud. How do they compete? Les Schwab will go beyond the call of duty to help their customers. I've done a lot of business with Les Schwab. They fixed the leak in my tire. In fact, this last winter, I came in with chains that were 10 years old that have never been used. They took them back and gave me brand new chains for my car. I did have to pay the difference between what I paid in 2013 and what I paid this year, but their customer service is unbelievable. So that's their differentiators. Jim Collins is another strategist who studied hundreds of businesses and found out what their secret sauce was. And he refers in his book Good to Great, which was a built to last, this theory about the hedgehog concept. The hedgehog protects itself from predators and competitors, by balling up. None of the predators want to eat this ball of pin cushions. So he called it the hedgehog concept because it was all about finding a niche and building a barrier that none of the competitors really wanted to go into or compete against. And the way he did that is by asking companies, or having companies that know what their passion is, knowing what they can be the best in the world at, and acutely knowing what their economic engine is. What are the things that really provides profit for the business, and growing it that way. And by focusing on that, which I do in my work with my clients, it can be very, very helpful in carving that niche out and knowing how your business is different from your competitors. So how do you put a strategy in place? One of my colleagues, Michael Sink, was a school teacher, high school school teacher at one point in time, and he found that all of these books on strategy were way too complicated for the average business to put in place. So he basically boiled it down to, there are two fundamental questions that drive to profitable growth. The business owner must know what is their strategy and how they need to make it happen. Now, knowing that is one thing, but putting it into action is quite the next. So strategy and execution are the key. The plan and the follow-through. What it really talks about, though, is professional discipline. Without professional discipline by really understanding your strategy and thinking about it and working on it on a weekly to monthly basis, you just fall back into those habits that we are all too familiar with as business owners. We fall into the things that we like to do, which is serving customers, which in most instances is not a bad deal. But if you are facing one of those inflection points in your business, changing in the marketplace, it's time to think about strategy. And now is an incredibly important time for many, many businesses because of what we have gone through and what we are going to go through as businesses. We've gone through a pandemic that has dramatically changed many businesses, sometimes for the good, sometimes for the not so good. We've had a bridge that has gone down on our community that has changed a lot of the businesses in West Seattle, some good and some not so good. We have coming up now a new era for our community and for our country and for businesses, and that's coming out of the COVID, but also facing gas prices that will be exceptional. Remote working, what does that mean? For businesses involved, let's say in the even automotive repair, here we have an evolution in automobiles that are being supported by the government to go to all electric. All electric vehicles have many, many fewer parts than do vehicles that are combustion engines. So what is the implications for businesses that are involved in auto repair? So there are a lot of changes happening in our society, and that will be happening to our businesses. So what we need to do is take stock of that and really understand some important dynamics. Those important dynamics I call the three major areas of work in the rock and sand model that Michael Sink put together in his book, Rock and Sand. In those areas of work is really understanding the strategic cores of the business, understanding the vision for the business, and then the execution piece, or the strategic meeting rhythms that need to take place as part of the regular activities within the business. So I'd like to go over these three areas to help you understand how you can look at your business a little bit differently by identifying your strategic cores, looking out over the dashboard of the business and predicting and setting a destination and predicting what you need to do in order to put this strategy in place and embrace it, and then how to do that on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. So first of all, if you look at this whole as your business, this is your business now, and the idea is to go from where it is today to the future, and that future is your vision for the business. And there's a concept that we look at the sand in the business as the day-to-day operational activities of systems and processes and customer service and billing and collection of cash and invoices in order to run the business. And most businesses are involved day to day in moving lots of sand and filling up that hole. And then they hire a few more employees, and then a few more employees to help move more sand. And pretty soon, they're moving lots of sand, but they reach a capacity limit. There's only so many shovelers that I can add to the business, and where do I take it from here? How do I make the business more efficient and grow it? That's where we think about the rocks. Rocks in the business represent those projects, the capabilities, the capacities, the methodologies, technologies, and so forth. And when we add a rock, it fills up the hole in one big swoop a lot quicker than just shoveling lots of sand. First thing we do is we buy a rock mover, something to help fill up the hole. The next thing we do is you take a look at some technologies, maybe a bulldozer per se, and that bulldozer can move a lot of sand quicker than a whole bunch of people shoveling it. So the real question then becomes, if I'm going to evolve my business by adding new technologies or capacities or capabilities or marketplaces and so forth, how do I choose which rocks to add and when? What are those? So that's where we need to talk about strategy and vision, because there's no sense in just randomly focusing on adding important capabilities to your business unless you know where you're going and unless you really understand the strategy of your business. So we call this the strategic cores, or the 5 strategic questions that need to be asked of your business. First of all, why do we exist? I mean, this is a highly theoretical, intellectual question, but in a way, your purpose really gives meaning to the work. You have to ask the question, why? Why are we in business? What are we doing? Why do we matter? It often becomes the mission statement of the organization. And that purpose really can't be just to make money. That's not that inspirational to most employees, is that the boss is in the business to make money, so what am I? I'm a cog in the wheel. You want to have a higher purpose as an organization because, frankly, it's more meaningful to you as an owner and a business person to know that you're serving a higher purpose than just making money. The next strategic question is, how should we behave? The values of the business. This is all about culture. This is incredibly important because these are the people that will be delivering your products and services, and you want to have everybody following the same, you might say, cultural norms and rules, so that there's harmony and cooperation within the business and operating under those same values. To really understand your business, you have to ask also, what are we good at? What do we do that people appreciate doing? Now, this is something that I really didn't know in the red dot business. I thought I knew what we were good at and what our customers really valued, and that was providing heating and air conditioning. But no, if I would have known, Caterpillar, the organization producing bulldozers and backhoes and all of those, they told us at one point in time, the reason that we buy from you is because you have the very best engineering in our industry. And your test results that come out of your environmental chamber about your heating and air conditioning systems for our vehicles, we can trust them, whereas your competition doesn't have at all. Now that did have nothing to do with the cost of every individual unit or the way we delivered it and so forth. It had everything to do about their confidence in our company providing the very best HVAC system. So this, for me, would have changed and pivoted where we put our energy and maybe some of the clients that we would have called on. The other piece is that we need to know who we love and who loves us. Now, I use that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but this is really, really important because the customers that love what you provide, your services, are the ones who, guess what, pay the very most for the product or service you provide because they love what you, they don't ask questions about price because they love what you do. And they're the very first ones to go out and tell others about your company or your business because they've had such a great experience. Other customers who really don't find quite the value, always ask about price first, they're probably not your core customer. You will find, though, in all the customers that your business serves, that your core customer, it represents a portion of your business. Some of the other customers, they're paying their bills as well and the invoices and are buying your product, maybe for other reasons than the one your core customer buys for. But you know, if you focus, and the more core customers that you add to your business, the more profitable it is. If you're adding customers that could either buy it from yourself or your competitor and are looking for the very best price, you're going to be struggling with margin the rest of your existence in business. And the last piece, the last strategic piece we need to ask is why? Why did those customers buy from us? So we can add a promise to what we deliver that locks them in and say, you know, the reason I buy from Nordstrom, yeah, I pay a little bit more. I can take anything back at any time, and they smile at me and say, we're so sorry that this didn't fit. We're happy to take this. That guarantee to certain customers is worth a lot. And the Les Schwab guys, why do I go there? Because with a smile, they're going to help me. And you know what? I'm not going to go any other place to buy tires because I know they're going to take care of me. Those are brand promises that help lock in your customers. The next big area of work is the vision for your company, the BHAG. BHAG is a acronym that Jim Collins uses called the Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal. And essentially what that means is where are you taking this business? You understand who you are, but where are you going to take the business? And looking out 10, 20, 30 years and establishing at the end of the day, if I could achieve this, for our company could achieve this goal, we would, be happy and feel we've had a successful business. This provides this destination for the organization to shoot for, and something then that you can make those decisions about how to choose rocks. That big, hairy, audacious goal also leads to key thrusts, the pieces of the puzzle that we need to put in place first to reach that destination. What most businesses can only focus on, however, you can't focus on a 30-year destination succinctly, but you can focus on a 3-year, 12 quarters of work, essentially a 3-year highly achievable goals. In 12 quarters, what are the pieces of the puzzle you can put in place to get you to where you want to be? That boils down to a 1-year annual plan and then quarterly objectives or 90-day rocks. It's easy once you have your annual objective to break down what are the pieces you need to put in place annually or each quarter to choose the rocks and how to accomplish getting towards your vision. So then the last piece is the weekly meeting rhythms. I shouldn't say weekly, the meeting rhythms. This is the execution piece. This is strategic meetings for the business. Every business has lots of meetings, but these meetings are short, they're succinct, and you talk about how we're doing on the rocks. If you can focus on both the daily activities and then take time out to know and focus on putting those rocks in place, one step at a time will help build your business toward the vision. That's how strategy and execution habits are built for your organization. The last piece of the puzzle is this what I call the growth roadmap. There is a tool which I'm happy to provide to you free of charge. It's a PDF that walks you through the elements that I've just provided. And on one page, front and back, you can have your entire strategic plan on the very first page, which goes through your core purpose, core values, core competencies, the things you're really, really good at, your BHAG, profit per X, core customer, and so forth. This is probably one of the most effective tools that I provide to my clients to help them stay on track in putting their vision together, and then also executing. The second page has to do with the 1-year plan and then quarterly execution. So that's a lot of information in a very short period of time. I wanted to make sure that you understand that strategy is very implementable. It can be simplified, and it can be very effective. I've used this process with companies from $1 million to one over $100 million. So this process is something you can use without reservation and help your business be very successful. So that's it. I am open to questions and answering questions on anything related to this and even my history. Whitney?
Excellent. I have a couple questions from the chat that were sent over. And the first one is, how do I create time for myself to be able to focus on my business strategy and implementation?
Well, that's probably one of the most difficult questions. The brutal fact is I ask some of my clients, do you ever take a vacation? And the question, yeah, I take a vacation. Well, that's really important to you, is to take a vacation and give yourself a break. If you don't take a vacation, you'll wind up like my granddad and have a breakdown by the test tank and be hauled off to the hospital. So, mental health is really, really important. What will help with mental health is having a plan. So you need to take time. This isn't a huge amount of time. I have a 2-day workshop that I usually run with my clients to help answer all of the questions that I just went over. Certainly 2 days, even for smaller businesses, you can get it done in a day. You can actually take a half a day in half-day chunks. You can answer all of those questions in 4 half-day chunks. You can do it in less if you want. It isn't something that has to happen all at one time, but methodically working through the process will help you organize your thoughts and bring your business into focus so that you can feel comfortable and breathe a little easier on putting the right pieces of the puzzle in place. Without question, every individual business, especially small businesses, are hair on fire, can't find enough employees, so forth and so on. Yeah, you are in it full time, but if you don't have a plan, you're not going to get out of that situation. Plan to fail to plan to fail is one of the mottos that I run by. So can I answer the question? There is time. When people often say there isn't any time, there is time. And it doesn't have to come in a full day chunk. It can come in bits and pieces, but you have to be deliberate about it. Very deliberate about following through with the full strategic thinking process to get to those rocks you need to put in place one at a time.
That makes a lot of sense, that if a business is saying that they don't have enough time and it's, just a couple people doing everything, and then they're in survival mode and hair on fire, like you said, if they don't make the time to make a plan to get out of it, then they're just going to be constantly shoveling sand
Yeah.
in that loop.
And I'm sensitive to, I understand small, I've got companies that are like that, but there's time after work, or unless you're a 24/7 business and you're there 24/7, which I don't think you are, there's time somewhere to chip away at this strategic thinking piece. And it helps to have a coach. Of course, that sounds self-serving, but I am happy to talk with any of you for half hour to hour, no charge, to help you get over that first hurdle. If we start having these conversations like 4 and 5 times, well, then we may have to think about a coaching session. But I'm happy to help you with the first steps.
Excellent. The next question, and if anybody has any questions, you can raise your hand or you can put it in the chat. The next question I have is, do you have any advice on how to differentiate your business, products, or services?
So, in differentiating your products or services, the first thing to look at is your core customer. Who do you love to serve? I mean, who? And you think of a person. Think of ideally three people. Think of three people that walk in your front door or give you a call or that you have relationships with that you love to work with and they love to work with you. What is it that makes them want to work with you? You know, what is that differentiator? Hopefully you can get to the personality. Certainly, I'm sure you have great charisma and that's why they do business with you. You can't, it's hard to replicate charisma. So there must be some type of service or product features that they love about your business. And you focus on amplifying those things that those core customers love about your business. Other customers are going to be there. Maybe they're going to be 90% of your business is other customers. But if you start focusing on the core customers and making them a bigger part and a bigger part of your business by amplifying the things that they love, you'll find yourself dealing with customers you love to work with, and B, your profits and your margins should be better. And it should be something that helps differentiate yourself from your competition.
Excellent. Would you recommend people ever sending out a survey to like their database just to get feedback directly from them about what they love or what they don't love?
As much as I hate surveys, I have to say yes. You need to have the voice of the customer be loud and clear. The problem with surveys is actually not the survey itself, it's how the questions are asked. So getting a little bit of time from a professional marketing company that will help you design the right questions and interpret them the right way will provide you, it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. If you provide the good questions that will lead you to answers that are helpful, that's the best way to do it. But absolutely yes, and you have to be a little persistent about it in asking those questions. But you have to get the voice of the customer in front of you so that and face the brutal facts. Hopefully, they tell you the things that are not working for you, so you can pivot your business or remove those items from what's going on in your business.
Great. Great. The next one. Can you explain the difference between owning a job versus owning a business?
Well, what I want to say about owning a job is, and it's not owning a job is not bad. I mean, most professionals, attorneys, dentists, doctors, so forth, they have a job to do and oftentimes are running the business at the same time. And so that job actually provides an income and a way that they can build wealth from actually the income that they receive for their business. A business often builds wealth because it is able to generate a revenue stream that can be leveraged to be much greater. So it will, when the business sells, it sells for multiples of the annual income that is provided. A lot of people think that because I do $5 million in top line sales that's what it's worth. No. if you make $500,000 on 5 or 10% on 5 million, then you may get 5 times that as a selling price, or 2.5 million. Usually businesses are sold between 4 and 5 times annual, not annual revenue, but annual profits of the business. So owning a business, you can build wealth by packing away income. Sometimes you can sell the business, a lot of times you can't in a professional arena. Other businesses, growth businesses, are sold on multiples of future potential earnings.
Super interesting. The last question I have is, do you have any advice for how to choose your rocks for each 90 days? So like, how do you be strategic about what's most important, like the top 3 things to focus on for each 90 days?
So those really become a derivative of what you know needs to be done in the business. It may be, you know what, we are space constrained, we need to move to a larger location. Okay, all right, so that is, you're just not going to go out and sign one up. You're going to, or my rock for the next 90 days is to do my research and come up with 3 alternatives by the end of the first quarter for potential locations. After that, I'm going to choose one, and then we're going to go through this due diligence phase, and I hope to. So it's about having a little bit longer view and breaking it down into bite-sized pieces that put the end result in mind, which means by the end of 2022, our business is going to be in a new location of X size, and this is going to help us in terms of growth. It could even be computer systems. We need to put a computer system in place that makes it so that we can actually add more capacity or more growth. Computer systems, technology, could even be key employees. I need to hire an operations manager so I can get out of what I'm doing on day to day, so I can get out and find more customers. So it's about the end result that you have in mind, and then breaking it down into those bite-sized pieces.
Excellent. This has been super helpful. All right, question from Zach. What would be the best way to reach out for an initial meeting? Where are we able to obtain the planning layout PDF you mentioned?
At randygardiner.com. So
Great.
Gardi, look at my name. My ancestors put an I in the middle of everything. So
Can I send out an email after this to everyone who registered with your contact information?
yes, happy to do that, and I will send out the PDF that's fillable. And also, if you want to schedule a half hour to talk about how to get started, happy to do that. No obligations, no strings. I'm happy to help.
Awesome. And then Connor Forbeck, you've got your hand up. You're on mute.
Randy, I just have one question other than how to unmute. So, like, I would say we're in the top 5 or 10% of pay and health insurance benefits for our industry. So, like, I know my painters feel good about that component. And then we're doing a lot of individual development plans with them to like try to cultivate more buy-in. But is there anything else we can be doing other than those 2 things to try to build the culture around buying in and owning your work and, feeling like you're part of it?
I think one, you're doing the right thing by getting a feel for where your crew is at and what means the most to them. The question, that a leader in your business might be very successful is your employees want to be part of something. And you find this a lot with, and I'm a boomer, okay? So with millennials and Xers and so forth, they really want to be part of something that is bigger than just the day-to-day. So where is your business going? And if you can provide a vision that says, someday, and you play the I have a dream speech. But you have to have that also in your own mind is someday I hope the business to be here, and here's what it means for you. And if your desire is to, and the question back to them is, what is it that you want to grow up and be? What is it that you want out of this organization? And understanding that there's a connection between your vision for the business and the role that they'll play. Pay winds up being number 4 or number 5 in the value employees use to determine whether they're going to stay with a company. Usually it's recognition. Number 1 is they appreciate what I do. Then it is going to be I like who I work with. And a number of these things, and I understand where this company, I buy into their mission. I want to be part of that. Pay comes up as like number 4 or 5. Benefits comes up number 4 or 5. So having that vision, and that requires, That requires a little bit of soul searching.
You have a list you could send us of the top 5 things, why employees stay?
I can, but you can get them as well on Google. Ask that question to
Mhm.
Google, and that'll come up in spades.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we've got our last question from Zach, and then we'll go around and do our member announcements.
Hi, Randy. I just wanted to kind of ask like maybe a broad answer for. I know what rocks I'd like to move, but I know I can do it, but I may not have the experience now to do it. But I know I would be able to do it if it came time to it. So I don't know if you have any like general advice on how to handle those uh, innovations or what have you. So
Well, without specifics, it makes it a little
right,
bit difficult. Uh, but what I would say is you're asking the right questions. That I don't know that I have all the answers, but here's what I'd like to do, and asking those of people who either provide the help or are smart in those areas. And you can get this for free just by making a phone call or sending an email, and they can well, here's what my experience has been, and you begin to collect information on what it takes to put that rock in place, and then you'll know more succinctly whether you're capable or whether you're going to need help in putting that rock in place. So cast about to ask, gee, what does it take to do X, Y, and Z? I've never done it before, and you'll have lots of, I think lots of responses from people. And if you don't know where to go look, then, feel free to reach out to me and tell me what you want to do, and I might have some ideas.
thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Any member announcements? Any upcoming events like Art Walk? Anything new at your business that you'd like to tell the group about?